Greetings, citizens from the rolling hills of the bluegrass. I'd like you to close your eyes and imagine with me for a moment a group of people. They have lived out in the country for a very long time. Most people view them as being kind of backward, unintelligent, secretive. And those same people are recognized for how industrious they are in their simple ways. And then those people move to the city. Now, they don't bother their neighbors. They live in small, tight-knit communities. They dress differently from everyone around them. They speak with an interesting accent. They have different hair customs, the way that they wear their hair around town, that you can definitely go, look at them, and they have head coverings. And you see them never bother anyone for the most part. They're always bothered. But they come in and they're industrious and they do well for themselves, but they don't bother anyone else. They don't really want anyone else coming in, but they don't bother anyone else. But they are a nice addition to the community. And there are still people out there that hate them. And now I would like you to imagine that these people are Jewish. Because I kind of pulled a time to kill on you on there, and some of you may have figured it out at the beginning. But I'm talking about the Amish. Because they don't bother anyone. They have their own internal problems. I recognize that. But they don't bother anyone. But they are still subject to certain things. Like all of us would be. But they have the cloak, for the lack of a better word, or the exemption, maybe is the better word, because they're religious. And you may be kind of scratching your head and kind of wondering, well, what does that have to do with a video on taxes? It's precisely this, that taxes are theft. And I am going there. It's legalized theft. It's theft that we have all agreed with should be allowed. But it is still theft. And you have to go, but if we all agreed on it, how is it illegal? Because we have allowed immoral things to exist before and called them legal. But stating that you have the right to someone else's labor, which is a very interesting position for the leftists to come from, because they say that you own your labor, but then we own everybody's labor as a collective. And that's how they can justify the income taxes that they push to the levels of 80 and 90%, is because we're all together. And we all owe one another our labor. That's the reason why it makes no sense with socialized medicine. How do you have a right to walk up to a doctor and say, I own your labor, work on me? But that doctor's a worker. That doctor went through school and effort to become who they are. And now you walk up to them and say, I own your labor. Well, there's no difference between that and an income tax. And in all honesty, the income tax is a little more pernicious because it applies to everybody. So we're all getting screwed. We're all getting hit with it. Might as well just do it and not complain too much. But let's go back to that Amish example. Because, as explained by many of the taxes we deal with in our lives, we can get away from. Right? If I don't want to have to pay insurance, I don't have to own a car. I then wouldn't have to pay the license fee for that car. But I still have to live somewhere. If I don't want to pay the cigarette tax, I can grow my own tobacco. If I don't want to pay the tax on alcohol, I can brew my own. And I almost gave away the whole point. The most pernicious out of all of these is the property tax, though, is because you cannot get away from it. Because you have to live somewhere. You have to have a roof over your head or you'll be homeless. Sure, you can rent, but the renter has to pay property taxes. And then the question comes in, well, who is the government to apply taxes on things you need under your own feet? That's the reason why they do, is because you need them. You have to have them. The property tax is one of the most pernicious taxes, is because it forces you into the economy in some way. Because for the most part, you could grow your own food. Electricity, if you were well off and were able to start off, you could go off grid. Water would probably still be a little difficult, but you could manage. But the land, you still have to pay property taxes. You can be as self-sufficient as you want to be, but once a year, you're going to get a little card in the mail, and it's going to say, we sent out the assessors, and they assess that your property taxes is now this. Pay up. Because it's all about the economy. That's all taxes are. It is people complain about those who pursue perpetual motion. More energy in for more energy out. Well, that's all taxes are. It's monetary perpetual motion. They come up with new statistics every year to justify the reason why they have to raise your taxes, or why they have to create new taxes, or better yet, because taxes have a political consequence. Taxes have a position that, this is actually in most constitutions and state statutes, so it can be regulated by the power of the vote. So what we'll do is we'll call these taxes fees, and then these taxes fines. See, we used a different word, so that means it's something different, even though in the end, they're all still taxes. They're taxes you pay in order to participate in this society. So the Amish, even though they live away from us, they still have to participate in some way. And that's the reason why many of you who live in Amish and Mennonite country, you see those people coming out of those secluded areas way in the back where you go to buy your fruits and vegetables. And yes, they have tax exemptions, and I understand this, but in the end, the tax man cometh, and they will come all the time if they could. Right? That image of holding someone up by their leg and shaking until all the coins come out. The tax man is always there. The collector will always come. And whether they call it a fine, a fee, or if they're actually brave enough and willing to follow the very laws they try to say they enforce, they'll make it a tax. But if they make it a tax, you all are going to come after them. Because like cookies, there are sometimes food. Fees and fines are a sometimes tax. Because not all of us have to pay it. But when you do, you'll realize, well, this should all just be rolled up into one tax and then divvied out in the normal funding. Why are there court fees? I can understand fines to a very small amount as an option instead of having to go to jail. But fees? All of that should be wrapped up into taxes. But that's another way that they create a revenue stream. Because like everything, government is a business. And you've got to pay for the things you get. But they nickel and dime you as you go along. And taxes keep you in the economy because you need things. And if you don't need things, if you're self-sufficient, they'll hit you with the property tax. And then you have to join the economy, at least in that small part. Just enough, just long enough to pay that property tax and be free for another year. But then the question comes, well, how are you paying for everything else? And the income tax comes back. And the IRS says, how are you getting these funds? And why aren't you reporting them to us? Why are you not telling us everything you do? And that's an amazing amount of power. Because as has been stated, the power to tax is the power to destroy. They can take everything you have, just like the leftists, and that's why leftists push tax reform so hard in the direction of increasing it, because they know that if they can get a hold of you through taxes, you can't get away. But the problem with the Republicans and the rightists is they will make cutouts for their friends. And that creates the corporate welfare and creates those multi-levels of taxation where these people pay little taxes, these people pay a little more and down, and then it trickles out to where a lot of the middle is paying a ton of taxes. And then below them, no one's paying taxes. And remember, the 1%, that's only people who are making what? $250,000, $1 million a year? Taxation should be put squarely on business. And not necessarily more taxes on business, but the collection of the taxes we already have. So that then you, the individual, will have money to go to those businesses and buy their services and goods. That's my opinion. Reduce personal property taxes to 0, payroll taxes to 0, increase business taxes, and let people put their money into the economy where they see fit. And have the collection be on the businesses, not on the individual.